Elizabeth Seymour, Duchess of Somerset and jure Baroness Percy was a great heiress. She was born Lady Elizabeth Percy, the only surviving child and sole heiress of Joceline Percy, 11th Earl of Northumberland. Lady Elizabeth was one of the closest personal friends of Queen Anne, which led Jonathan Swift to direct at her one of his sharpest satires, The Windsor Prophecy, in which she was named carrots, marriages and amp progeny. She married thrice, producing progeny by the third marriage only. Henry Cavendish, Earl of Ogle. At the age of 12 she married firstly on the 27th of March 1679, the 20-year-old Henry Cavendish, Earl of Ogle, the only son and heir of Henry Cavendish, 2nd Duke of Newcastle, who in accordance with the marriage settlement adopted the surname of Percy in lieu of his patronymic. However, he died the following year and was buried in the parish church at the Percy seat of Petworth, without progeny, although due to her young age the marriage probably had not been consummated. Thomas Thynne. On the 15th of November 1681, at the age of 14, she married secondly to Thomas Thynne of Longleat, Wiltshire, known due to his great income as Tom of 10,000, a relative of Thomas Thynne, 1st Viscount Weymouth. He was murdered the following February by a gang on the order of Swedish Count Karl Johann von Königsmarck, who had started to pursue her following rumor that her marriage was unhappy. For the rest of her life her enemies spread the story that she had incited the murder. The actual murderers were hanged, but Königsmarck was acquitted of being an accessory to the crime, despite widespread public feeling against him. Without progeny, Charles Seymour, 6th Duke of Somerset, 5 months after the death of Thomas Thynne. At the age of 15 she married on the 30th of May 1682 the 20-year-old Charles Seymour, 6th Duke of Somerset, of Marlborough Castle in Wiltshire, and so became Duchess of Somerset. Soon after the marriage he rebuilt in palatial style her father's principal seat, Petworth House in Sussex. She was mistress of the robes to Queen Anne from 1710 to 1714. The marriage is said to have been unhappy. While she brought the Duke great wealth, it was said that she received neither affection or gratitude in return. By the Duke she had progeny as follows: Charles Somerset, Earl of Hereford, who died an infant in his first year. Algernon Seymour, 7th Duke of Somerset, eldest surviving son and heir. His only daughter and sole heiress, Lady Elizabeth Seymour, jure Baroness Percy, together with her husband Sir Hugh Smithson, 4th Baronet, inherited half the great Percy estates including Alnwick Castle and Sion House. Lady Elizabeth Seymour, wife of Henry O'Brien, 8th Earl of Thomond, without progeny. His chosen heir was her younger nephew Percy Wyndham O'Brien, 1st Earl of Thomond of Short Grove, Essex, who adopted the surname O'Brien and was elevated to the peerage. Lady Catherine Seymour, wife of Sir William Wyndham, 3rd Baronet of Orchard Wyndham in Somerset. Her eldest son was Charles Wyndham, 2nd Earl of Egremont, who inherited half of the great Percy estates including Petworth House and Egremont Castle. Lady Anne Seymour died young. Political influence. The Duke and Duchess were among the Queen's oldest friends, with whom she had taken refuge in 1692 after a violent quarrel with William III and Mary. Like Marlborough before him, Somerset used his wife's position as confidant to advance his career. Both of them became the target of violent verbal attacks, especially from Swift, who hoped to influence the Queen through Abigail Masham, the obvious rival for the position of confidant. Apparently against Mrs. Masham's wishes, he published a violent diatribe, The Windsor Prophecy, against the Duchess, referred to as carrots. Swift explicitly accused the Duchess of having conspired to murder her second husband, and wildly suggested that she might poison the Queen. "I have been told they assassin when young and poison when old." The Queen was outraged, always a bad enemy to make. From then on she refused to consider Swift for preferment to a bishopric. Even his appointment as Dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral, Dublin, was made against her strongly expressed wishes. Ignoring the gossip, she insisted on retaining the Duchess in her household. The Duke's pride and arrogance eventually wore out the Queen's patience, and he was dismissed from his court offices early in 1712. The Queen's doctor, Sir David Hamilton, advised her to keep the Duchess in her service for her own quiet, and the Queen agreed. The Duchess remained with the Queen to the end of Anne's life, by which time Lord Dartmouth described her as much the greatest favourite. During the Queen's painful last days, Elizabeth's calm and soothing manner is said to have brought some comfort, whereas Mrs. Massam was in a state of hysterics. Reputation. Elizabeth's influence on the Queen, together with her colourful past, made her many enemies. Like her third husband, she seems to have been proud, although Lord Dartmouth called her the best-bred as well as the best-born person in England. She showed great skill in dealing with the Queen, her secret, it was said, being never to press the Queen to do anything for her, in contrast to Abigail Massam, who constantly asked for favours. She was known as a shrewd observer of court life and a notorious gossip. Even the Queen, who was fond of her, called her one of the most observing, prying ladies in England. Estates and residences. Lady Elizabeth Percy brought immense estates to her husbands and in addition her residences, Alnwick Castle, Petworth House, Sion House and Northumberland House in London. Ancestry.